Ugh, what's that smell? Janine took us to Red Crab for lunch. Everyone had chili crab. She knows I hate the smell of seafood. Makes me sick. Sometimes I feel like she does this on purpose. This is the 3rd week in a row. I can't have this place smelling of seafood. Our biggest clients are due to come here in a few weeks. I guess she's not happy that you put her in HR, even though she's worked really hard to get that operations manager promotion. My boss looked at me as if I just slapped the Pope. Give me more lip, Jake, and you'll be filing for unemployment by the end of the month. I thought I was going to be living the dream working for a startup. You know, officers in Silicon Valley, meeting all the tech giants, one day becoming like Elon. But no, I ended up here, doing the job of 10 people and getting paid less than what I'm worth. There's literally a middle-aged guy sitting across from my desk who earns 3 times more than I do. And the only useful thing he's done this past week was to finally shut up about golf. The guy codes like a 12-year-old who has no idea which one's the mouse and which one's the keyboard. I think the only reason he still has a job is because he's old buddies with the boss's dad. They go golfing every afternoon. Maybe they pay him to golf. It's the only explanation. So, yeah. Anyway, I do a lot of things at the company. Every single person there comes to me when they need help on their projects, their code, or just any kind of advice. And I would always happily help anyone. So much so that a lot of the time, I end up doing everybody else's jobs for them. And I get to be the only one staying late so I can finish my own projects. But at the very least, I get to say that I'm indispensable. I was. The whole company runs on my code. Every single department I had a hand in. If I were to leave, everything would come crashing down. I've been working there for 3 years without so much as a raise. So when I finally did ask for one, I was promised a really big one. My boss said it was a thank you for all the work I did. I was kind of thinking about working elsewhere, but when he brought up the raise, I had hope. He said to expect it in January. But January came and went, and suddenly it was March. And when I asked about the raise, he said it was coming. I blew up. I couldn't believe I'd turned down a chance to work for Boston Dynamics for nothing. Don't be impatient. I can give you an additional $100 every month. But that's all we can afford for now. I was fuming. All they can afford? Meanwhile, he just hired 3 new people. The golf guy was still getting paid to do nothing, and there was a new 10-foot painting installed at the lobby, which cost over $50,000. I don't think this is working for me anymore. What are you gonna do? Work at McDonald's? You dropped out of college. No one's gonna hire you. Now, go back to your desk and stop making demands. My girlfriend left me that night. I thought you said you were gonna get a raise. Or a promotion? It's been months since you said that. I've been patient. I keep waiting for you to bring home more money so I can finally stop working and just stay home. And you still can't make enough. I'm leaving you. I'm sure there's a bunch of other guys who would line up to be my sugar daddies. And she left. I was furious. And so the very next day, I waited until all the people at the office had gone home. I snuck into my boss's office and left something there for him. I had this mouse, see? And it was always beeping. Randomly. My boss had this fake plant on his desk. I dug that thing out and put the mouse there. Under the fake soil, I made sure the mouse had fresh batteries so that it would stay turned on for weeks. The first day, I watched him furiously typing on his keyboard when suddenly, a beep! My boss heard it, but he wasn't sure if it was real, because the beeping was so faint you'd miss it if you weren't listening. He stopped typing again. For days, he tried to figure out where it was coming from. He would just sit there, staring at his monitor. Then, when the beeping happened, he'd stand up, lean over to put his ear to the wall, beep, and then he'd sit down again. The beeping drove him crazy.
He could never figure out where it was coming from. On day 10, he ordered people to disassemble his computer. But still, they couldn't find anything. He threw that laptop away and bought a new one. And when the beeping stayed, he threw his phone away. He changed computers and phones 3 times in the course of 2 weeks. In the midst of it all, I started my own side hustle. I knew they weren't going to pay me more, so I decided it was time for me to make my own fortune. I'd always loved making art, and I was pretty good at it too. Unfortunately, it was very hard to make money off of. But then, I stumbled on something called NFTs. It was early days back then. Nobody knew what it was. So I got in before it blew up. I began designing stuff, and I streamed as often as I could, showing people how I made my art. By the second month, I'd gotten a decent number of followers, and everyone was hyped. They wanted me to drop my collection as soon as possible. But then, my boss found out, and he wasn't pleased at all about the fact that I had a second job. Why are you wasting your time doing all of this nonsense? You could use that time to maintain our servers. Or, I don't know, making sure our projects are delivered on time to our clients? Drawing weird monkeys? I pay you to code, not to be a stupid artist. Sorry, boss, but what I do during my time at home is my business. I do maintain our servers, even though it's not in my job description. In fact, I do so much of everyone else's job that I'm basically the only reason the company still functions. As far as projects being on time, maybe you should look into putting your other employees to work instead of golfing all the time. And they're apes. What? My artwork. They're apes, not monkeys. Whatever. I want it to stop. You devote your time to your job or you're fired. I ranted that night during my stream. I was so sick of it. Sick of being taken advantage of. Sick of being paid peanuts. Sick of having to carry people's weight. So I let it all out when my audience listened and told me to never give up. Told me to hang in there. I was happy. I was happy I was doing art. And I was satisfied that it wasn't just me who saw that my boss was a total douche. The very next morning, I was called into my boss's office again. And the golf guy was there with a smug look on his face. Turns out, he watched my stream, and he reported back every single thing I said while I was ranting. Needless to say, the boss wasn't very happy. He threatened to suspend me, but he knew just as well as I did that if he did that, everything would grind to a halt, and he would be losing money by the minute. Instead, I'll be revoking your raise. What? You can't do that. I can, and I will. Now, get back to work. Our clients are coming tomorrow, and everything needs to be in tip-top shape. Honestly, I was ready to cave in. I would have forgiven him for that. I just love coding. So I was ready to swallow my pride and do what he said. But at that very moment, the door opened. And there she was, my ex, Clara, standing by the doorway looking all dolled up. Babe, you said we were leaving at 10. It's past. We won't make it to brunch. Plus, we gotta swing by Tiffany's for that bracelet you were gonna get me. Oh. I saw red. Clara left me? For this guy? She didn't even bat an eye when she saw me there. She just batted her eyelashes at my boss. And that stupid, ugly ogre. I quit. What? You heard me? My boss panicked, but Clara dragged him away. I could see his world crumbling behind his eyes as he left. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything's as it should be before I leave. Whatever. Good luck getting another job after this. Don't come crawling back to me. And don't expect a severance package. And with one last tug at his arm, my boss was dragged away by my ex to some brunch. That was his mistake, because I did pack up. But before I left, I made a short trip to the nearest restaurant. I bought every piece of shrimp head they had. all the ones they were about to throw out. I stuffed them in every nook, every cranny of that office. Inside curtain rods, under the carpets, in the insides of couches. Everywhere. I took a screenshot of his desktop, set that as his wallpaper, and then I hid all of his desktop icons. He would have to spend hours trying to figure out why clicking on his icons doesn't do anything. And, as a final goodbye, I put in a teeny bit of code in the company's systems, so that every time they did something, it would break the computers immediately. And then it would play that really annoying song that people used to rickroll each other with. I heard it was chaos. The boss had to hire a cleaning crew overnight, and when his big presentation came, the clients couldn't breathe from the persistent smell of rotting shrimp. And to top it all off, his computer wasn't working. And when he tried to reboot, it played the rickroll song. The clients left, shouting and screaming at everyone. That same night, I decided to launch my NFT collection. It was the only way I might make money. But I had no idea it would turn out the way it did. Within a few hours, I sold 4. I slept, thinking it was nothing, and when I woke up, there was 100 million in my account. I couldn't believe my eyes. The very first thing I did was go back to my boss. He called security, but they weren't there to throw me out. Escort this man off the premises. My boss's eyes went blank. He couldn't understand what was happening. Oh, yeah, you don't work here anymore. I bought your stupid company. Just because I can. I'm gonna use it to store my old stuff for when I move to my new penthouse apartment. Clara was there, and she heard it all, and her eyes began to twinkle. Ha! Not a chance, gold digger. That was when my 2 supermodel dates came in and kissed me.